Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Money Hungry Mama podcast. I'm so excited because I have Liz here today. Liz, take it away.
Hi, everyone. And first off, Brittany, thank you so much for having me on. This is such a pleasure for me. I've been listening and following and love to see all the success that is coming your way.
Thanks.
So, I am a boutique bookkeeping firm owner. I run my bookkeeping firm along with my husband, but I am the one that pretty much brings bookkeeping to the tables. I went to school for it, I have over 10 years of experience with it. And we actually have quite a story of how we really got to where we are
Yeah.
today. I actually started off before I started my firm. I worked in the private corporate accounting sector for several years. So I had experience in that. And I really just wanted to do something more with what I had to offer. And so I ended up venturing off to my first bookkeeping firm. So I actually had one before and I was able to grow that. I took it full time. And this was
Wow.
all before kids. So I was able to really pour into it a lot.
Yeah.
And then my husband, at the same time, he was actually building a construction business. And so we kind of joined forces at one point, and I slowly ended up walking away from my firm to help him build his. And we ended up growing it a lot more than we expected. We ended up actually opening a different construction business, growing that to $1 million making business. And we had a lot of success in it. But as you know, business isn't perfect.
Hmm.
Unexpected things come about. And at the time, he had a partner, and well, things didn't necessarily work out as the way that we planned. And we ended up walking away from it. But me being a numbers girl and loving everything about planning and like preparing, I definitely had a nice little nest egg saved away. And we ended up taking a year off with my husband and just traveling. We were new parents at the time. So also having that like space to kind of grow into that role was really nice, having that space and growing our little family. And then after kind of reevaluating what we found was important and a priority for our lives, we were like, you know what? Let's do something of our own. And I was like, you know what? I know it's not your world, but
Yeah.
bookkeeping might be the way that we could go. And yeah, he kind of brought all of his sales experience and building business. And then we joined it with my skill, which is bookkeeping and accounting. And we ended up growing Balance Roots Bookkeeping. And that's where we are today. So a very unexpected journey, but has been such a blessing. And we found a lot of happiness in how we wanted the lifestyle for our family to be like.
Okay. So I'm going to be here for a second because I know there's a mom listening right now that's like, you work with your husband. How is that?
Yeah, so it's so interesting because I remember back before kids, I would always tell him like, "I'm never gonna work with you." Like, I don't think I can do it. I'm not that woman. But you know what? It just kind of like naturally grew into that. And I'm not gonna lie, like challenges for sure, right? Because you have communication on a whole other level. It's not just about like your partner in personal matters, but now it's like, all right, putting away those little pet peeves and those little triggers
Yeah.
aside, and let's talk about what's best for the business. Because at the end of the day, this is our joined vision for our lives. And so, really making that the priority was definitely a work in progress. It took years to find a rhythm for us, but once we found it, we were like, this is something we can definitely see long term.
Oh my gosh, guys, it could work. It could
It
work. You
can.
could work with your husband and not kill him. I love that. Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because, like, there's always, like, times where, I see people, like, and they get to go to lunch with their husbands and, like, whatever, and I'm
Hmm.
like, that would be so nice, like, the kids are at school and you get to, like, have, like, a lunch hour together alone, like, a little date day, and I was like, "Oh, man," like, I would
Yeah.
love to do that, but then sometimes, like, even with this business now, like, he'll throw me some ideas, but then he won't stop with that idea, and I was like, "Imagine working
Mm,
together," like, oh my gosh, he would
yeah.
constantly try to give ideas and that we would have to pivot all the time, so but I love that you guys found your rhythm and everything is going good. What is your main clientele, would you say?
So definitely women owned businesses. That's my bread and butter. I love it. I have some clients that are males, but there's just something different about working with a woman that's very clear on what's important to them. And usually I tend to work with a lot of moms as well, which I
Yeah.
love because especially now that I'm a mom, I'm like, yeah, like we I don't even know how we function, but we function and it's on a
Yeah.
whole other level. Nothing of what really anybody else that hasn't experienced it will understand.
Mhm.
So I really love working with definitely mom owned, women owned, a lot of creatives. I work with a lot of creatives. So brand, web designers, social media managers, kind of like that whole creative space in general. But also, I have like a nice mixture of some small mom and pops that are locals that I also love to come alongside and really help in whatever way that I can.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, it's definitely, even in for everybody listening, even in like a bookkeeping business, you have to have a clientele because when you're marketing and
Hmm.
you're talking to a specific person.
Yeah.
So that's so important. So how did you start getting your business out there?
So it's so interesting, actually. That's a great question because I feel like with my bookkeeping firm before, it wasn't even that long ago, but the space was so different. I actually was like working during COVID at the time, was
Wow.
able to grow it pretty quickly. But it's so different now for sure.
Yeah.
Like the whole like social media space and like online presence, the approach of how I get myself out there is so different as well. I have definitely trial and error with a lot of things, but I really have just found a lot of success in just authenticity, just being like genuine and like really I totally understand where you're coming from because I've built businesses before. I know what it takes to pour into your business, everything you have left, and out of love for the lifestyle that you want, right? Like for your
Yeah.
family, the type of schedule, the freedom that you want, that especially a mom craves because you want to be present for your kids, right?
Yeah.
And so I have found that really just showing up in that way, in a very human, like, connection and relationship way has been my forte because I was never, like, salesperson, I was never good at that aspect, but I just found I'm like, I can totally connect with people, and that is one thing that I can drive home, and at the end of the day, especially nowadays with the kinda just environment that we're living in, like, human connection is what we all crave, what we all want, and what we
100%.
all struggle to find. So that's the way that I've been really approaching it, whether it's been online or whether it's been networking events or just meeting people and just, local people that I find in my area. Yeah, and just always being open to that.
No, yeah, 100%. And it's so funny because I keep bringing it up on the podcast, but new mamas are listening every day. But 2026, a trend is storytelling. And like
Yeah.
that is a trend for social media. And it's because, and I made this joke last night. We have a Money Hungry Mama table, which is our online networking. And last
Hmm.
night was our night and our call. I made this joke on there and I was like, I'm going to start living my life in my stories like a Bravo TV show. Like people miss that. And sure enough, in
Hmm.
one day, guys, in one day, you guys are filling my DMs with, like, comments. Like, today I tried I don't know if you've ever had a Starbucks matcha.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, that was my first time ever trying a Starbucks matcha, right? Like, my first time ever
Okay.
trying matcha at all. And I was like, "Oh, it has, like, a little bit of an earthy feel." Let me tell you,
Yes.
within 20 minutes, I had 5 DMs being like, "Absolutely not." They're like, "You have to go to your local coffee shop." And I was like, "Nobody
Yeah.
tells me rules of matcha." I was like, "I
Yeah.
don't know." But I think it's so funny, and I think if anything, you're taking anything from this, it's be yourself. Talk about
Hmm.
your everyday life. Talk about
Yeah.
the things that you're doing, whether it's like, "Hey, I'm trying matcha for the first time," or, people miss that. We miss being able to turn on TV and watch, like Housewives of whatever. And like
Hmm.
all of those days, it's like 2026 is a trend of nostalgia and in person. So
Yeah.
because AI and everything, people have now veered back to being in person. I don't know if you noticed this too, because
Yes.
they miss, like you said, that human connection. They miss just like
Hmm.
talking to somebody like this and being like, oh my God,
Hmm.
even though we are far apart, we're still having this conversation here today. And it just like makes it more personal. And it's like, oh, like we've chatted on Instagram, but like now we've chatted. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now we'll be like a part of each other's, social media and stuff like that. So I think that that's really cool.
Yeah. No, definitely the relatability aspect of especially business owners, mom
Mhm.
owned, women owned, we get it on a whole other level. Nobody's going to get it the same way that we do. But when you find that person that you're like, oh my God, I could totally relate to that. It's like you can't stop wanting to like look at their stuff and want to connect and want to be around them.
100%. And like how you said, nobody can get the mom owned business situation. They can't. Like
Mhm.
How many times was it, like, rescheduled? Somebody was sick, somebody was like you know what I mean? It's like, if you were working with just and if you're working with just somebody that doesn't have kids, they're not gonna understand that, yes, I have this business and I have this podcast and it's amazing and I love it more than anything, but I
Mhm.
love my little humans more. So, like, if
Yeah,
they're sick and they need me, this will always go on the back burner versus what they need. And a
that's right.
business owner that doesn't have that, they really struggle to see why you would choose not your business. You know what I mean? So I think that
That's
that is
right.
something that I've absolutely noticed in this space too.
Definitely.
It's so, so true. How many kids do you have?
I have one toddler and I have one on the way. So I'm soon gonna find out too.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Gosh, 2. Gotta love it. I have 3. Beautiful chaos, man. Beautiful chaos, but it's
I
chaos.
know I'm bracing myself. I don't know what to expect, but I'm sure it's gonna be fine.
No, no. It's so funny. People say all the time because, like I said, I have 3. What was your hardest? 0 to 1. Like, nobody convinced me that going from
That's
no
true.
kids to 1 kids was the hardest situation of my life. You literally become someone that is so selfish. You spent however many years before you were pregnant only worrying about yourself. And then all of a sudden, and little one comes and it's like, oh my God, I can't even go to the post office without
Hmm.
having to bring this like little car seat in with me. It's
Yeah.
crazy. 0 to 1 I will always say was the hardest.
Okay, that's great to hear.
Percent. Well, you already know what you're doing. You got it down,
That's
love.
true.
You're just adding one more and you're not
That's true.
outnumbered, which is great.
That's true. Yes.
Yet. Okay. So let's ask a couple questions here.
Yeah.
What is the biggest money leak you see in small business?
Oh my gosh, that's such an easy one because I see
I
it all
love
the
it.
time. 100% I feel like subscriptions are always where it's at. And because that's such a common way of like now purchasing really any software, anything, using anything for your business, I feel like where the conflict comes into play is the lack of keeping your bookkeeping up to date
Mhm,
because you don't catch the subscriptions that maybe you wanted to cancel or you meant to cancel or you thought you canceled and then they just kind of keep on racking up and you don't realize it because maybe you haven't really been in your books
mhm.
and it's such an easy place like I literally at least I can say once or twice with each client that I have found a leak within subscriptions that either it's been like a yearly charge or a monthly and it's been pretty hefty and I pointed out and we're saving them like a minimum of $500 of like a year. You know, if you're a small business, you know that any amount is like helpful, especially when you're starting off.
Yeah.
Let alone when you're trying to grow, that's $500 that you could have used maybe towards hiring somebody or subcontracting or using it towards something that you wanted to make an improvement with in your business. So
Mhm.
I feel like that's such an easy place for money to just leak without you realizing it because of the lack of really awareness of keeping your bookkeeping up to date or just looking at it at least I always say make it a habit at least once a quarter. Look at your finances, ideally every month, obviously depending on how much transactions and volume you have going on in your business, but that's usually where I find all the leaks coming from.
It's so true because it's like everything is a subscription now, like whether it's a Wix,
Mhm.
like or Show It or
Yeah.
Kajabi, and I have all 3 of those, and like it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's just eating the money away. Like
Yeah.
that's exactly what's happening, which is wild because it's just so expensive. But
Yeah.
it's so true. Okay, I love that. So now looking at our finances once a month should absolutely, I agree, should be something that you do because if you're not really
Mhm.
knowing like what's coming in, how are you like continuously paying for things? My
That's
other
right.
question to you is how being in this business, at what year are you seeing the business becoming profitable? Like what is the average year?
So I feel like it differs from industry to industry for sure, but because I work with a lot of creatives, I feel like usually honestly if they're pricing correctly, year 2 to 3,
Hmm.
they're doing well. Like, we're profiting a minimum of, like, 10, 15%. That goal, I always tell them, like, my clients and even just business owners that I have the opportunity to talk with, your goal is definitely you wanna get close to that 30% for sure. Usually by year 5, I see people already, like, doing I have this one client, she's absolutely amazing, killing it. Her profit margin is like 45 to 50, sometimes 60. And I'm like, girl, you are killing it. I'm like, you don't even understand how good it is until like she didn't even realize it because we started working together. And once I like cleaned everything up for her and I was like, do you realize that this is what you're profiting? And she's like, I had no idea. And I'm like, no wonder. I'm like, you're doing amazing. And so, I think she's about year 5. So I feel like, yes, that's a very common year 5 when it comes to like creatives, like in the online space, like brand and web designers and like any type of creative agency in that sense. Year 5 is usually when they're doing their absolute best. But year 2 and 3 is usually when that flips to you're profiting a good amount of
Mhm.
money to now be able to start planning ahead for what's next.
Okay. Did everybody just hear her? Year 2 and 3, but 5 is your best. So, like, if you are sitting here in the thick of it in year 1, like, I'm not profiting, I'm losing more money than I'm taking in, that's normal. That's a
Hmm.
normal situation. You are starting a business. And that's why they always say, like, if you can get over that hump, and I want to say it's a 3-year hump. If you can get over
Hmm.
that hump, everything goes great from there. And yes, it could be extremely hard, but that's why we always talk about offsetting, right? If
Hmm.
you're running this business, you might stay into your 9 to 5 just so this way you have that stability and doing this late nights and early mornings, right? Been there doing it.
Right.
And then you also could do things like quick things to make money that I've talked about that nobody likes to like really hear when I say, but you could do a DoorDash run or an Amazon Flex or whatever if you need money that day to just kind of
Hmm.
get. So there are ways to go around it to stay with what you're doing, but it is so normal that it doesn't happen automatically.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that because I think that's one of the biggest pain points that I hear is I'm not
Hmm.
making any money. And my first question always is, well, how long have you been at this? And it's like, yes, there's some people that went viral overnight, but honestly, I don't even know if I believe all those. Like they had to get to a certain point in the algorithm where people were like, oh my gosh, like let's push them out. So
Yeah,
I think nothing is really overnight success. It's more in that grit in the heart. Like you just got to keep pushing through for sure.
that's right.
For sure. So, what is something this is like a great question. What is something that people think is a tax write off, but actually isn't?
Okay. So I feel like meals always fall into here.
Really?
Yeah, so they are 100, you can definitely it's definitely a tax deduction, but there's rules. So you gotta like really fall into these. Now there's obviously like loopholes around it, right? Like you can find ways, but I always find the most common is like, oh, my coffee in the morning. Like I'm gonna go to Starbucks, I'm gonna go to Dunkin', I'm gonna go to wherever you go, wherever local coffee shop and you're like, "Oh, but I worked while I was at the coffee shop or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, technically, yes, you can, but technically also no." And I know that sounds so confusing, but the reality is the rule of thumb is if you're going to deduct any type of meal, you have to be first off, like whether it's a networking or a work meeting, and it has to be the whole conversation the whole time, like 100% about work.
Wow.
And it's so hard, especially when you're a solopreneur,
Mhm.
because the reality is your meetings are usually with a laptop. You're not really actually sitting with a person. So that can count. But usually, once you start adding like a team member or something, it's so much easier to be like, oh, we went with this person because you can prove like an itemized receipt for it, right? But I do find that to be something that a lot of people go back and forth on. And some people like will go out to dinner like, let's say if they work with their husband or something and they go out to dinner and they're like, "Oh, well, we talked about work for like 10, 15 minutes." And I'm like, "I guess, yes, I guess that is true. But was the sole purpose of that night out, was it a date and you talked about work? Or was the sole purpose like it's a meeting and we talked about work?" So there's like always that distinction that you want to make. And I'm not, taxation, that's not my area of expertise. I've seen a lot in 10 years. But and I always tell, my clients, definitely double check with your tax preparer because tax laws also change constantly. So
Mhm.
that's always important to really be knowledgeable about that. But from what I've seen, that is, I feel like the most common and pushback that I get with those tax deductions.
No, it's so true, and I'm thinking of, like, Schitt's Creek with David, and he's like, "It's a write-off." And the dad's like, "Well,
Yes.
what's a write-off?" And he's like,
I
"Who's
love
writing it
that.
off?" And he's like, "I don't know."
Yeah. I'm obsessed with that scene. I literally I have used it so many times on my content because I'm just like, we all feel that
Oh,
clueless.
100%.
Even
I
your
don't
bookkeeper, like, sometimes I'm just like, "I don't know, like, let me go double check for you because the reality is this just changed and I don't know really what to tell you."
it's so hard.
But it's just one of those things where as long as you check off all the requirements that the IRS has for it, then you're good to go.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I'm always like and it's so funny because people are like, "Oh, like, this is the first time I heard somebody kind of put it at, well, was it an office on purpose conversation, or did you just bring it up?" Because for
Mhm.
so long, people would be like, "Well, if you talked about it, it counts." And it's like,
Yeah.
I was always like, "Does it though?" Like, I don't really know because I just don't want anybody coming for me. So, like, I
Yes.
would rather not include it if the IRS was gonna knock on my door. I'd be like, "No, just keep it.
Yeah.
Just
Agreed.
I'll keep my steak dinner and you just leave me alone." But it's
Yeah.
so funny. That's so funny. So many moms start a business that make a few hundred to a few thousand a month. Should they still be tracking finances seriously at that level?
I definitely think if you already opened a business legally,
Mhm.
you have an LLC, you have like a separate entity for your business, 100% you should be right off the bat. One, even if it's not for the actual tracking of the transactions, it's for the habit for yourself because
Mhm.
eventually you will fall off of the habit because people get busy. I always recommend that you do it regardless, even when you don't have a different entity, like if you are a sole proprietor, because at the end of the day, you want to have those tax deductions. But how
Mhm.
are you going to be able to deduct them if you don't even know what you have to track in order to tell your CPA or tax preparer, like, hey, I spent this amount of money on a new laptop for work? They wouldn't know. And if you don't know, they don't know. And if they
Mhm.
don't know, then you can't even use it as a tax deduction. And at the end of the day, that's going to help you not have to spend so much money on a tax bill that sometimes surprises all of us.
Yeah, I dread it. Like
Everyone does.
I my tax guy, so for everybody listening, it's March 4th. My tax guy had the flu and he had to cancel this weekend and I've been sweating ever since. Like I thought I was going to have my
No.
answer and be like, "Okay, like what is it?" And now I have to wait until the end of May and I mean until the end of March and I am like, I can't do this. Like I'm going to I
Yeah.
can't do this. But we will
Yeah.
say, what is one bookkeeping tool every entrepreneur should use?
Um, well, that's such a good question. I always like to say not specific to like softwares or anything because I feel like if you are diligent enough and you are being intentional with your finances, you will find a way to track what you need to track. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't say anything in particular when it comes to software, but I definitely think that you should have some sort of spreadsheet. And if you want to use a software like a QuickBooks Online or Zero or something like that, you definitely should. I feel like it's become a thing and something that I hear so often from so many entrepreneurs, especially like the mom-owned ones, which I again, I can relate. I'm like, you have so many other things on your mind and so little time, I should say,
Mhm.
to really be diligent with. But I will hear so much like, oh, like I have a QuickBooks Online, but I didn't really use it that often. I felt like I was bleeding the 60, $50 a month or whatever the tier they had. And I just stopped using it. So I just canceled it. And then I'm like, okay, great. So, like, where are you tracking your stuff? And then comes the question, they're like, well, see, that's the thing. So I'm like, I think that as long as you have a place to home all of your anything that's moving financially, coming in and going out, you
Mhm.
need it. And I think that that's a wherever you decide that's the place for you because when you start out, you don't need a software. You can
Mhm.
use a spreadsheet. And I
Yeah.
get it because you got to like cut corners where you need to cut corners when you're starting out. You need to save money. But you still need to begin to build that habit of like, I need to be tracking things in one place so that I'm not driving myself crazy because that's what adds usually to like the chaos in the minds of most business owners. You have a million different things that you're thinking about adding 2 or 3 different places where you're housing your financial transactions is just gonna drive you insane, and then it's gonna drive you to not even wanna look at it or do it or update it. So having one place where you can house it all is the best advice I can give any entrepreneur, whether it's a spreadsheet or whether it's a software, and use it. And if you don't know how to use it, you can always work with someone like, for example, bookkeepers like myself, at least I can speak for myself. I don't necessarily just do the work for you. I also have some clients that are advisory clients where they're just like, "Hey, can you just walk me through like what I'm supposed to be doing because I don't really
Yeah.
know and I'm starting out." So I'll sit and we'll have like an advisory session that I personalize to them and their business, their industry, and everything about them, and what's important to them, and walk them through it, and then kind of leave them on their own. And they're like, now you can go out and do the thing by yourself. But there's tools everywhere around you. You just really have to be intentional, especially as a business owner that's starting out, because you're building the foundation for your business and you're going to grow on that foundation. So it's best to have really good habits and a really strong foundation to build upon.
Yeah, no, I love the fact that, like, you even just have, like, an advisory meeting where it's like, somebody doesn't want the retainer, but, like, you can sit there and walk them through everything, and they could try it
Yeah.
themselves. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Okay, what is the biggest financial myth online right now?
Man. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I would definitely say that bookkeeping is just for tax compliance. I feel like that's the preconception that every business owner hears and you perceive from just
I
the
did.
world out there in the business world. Yeah, and like most people will be like, well, I need to have my bookkeeping in order because I need to have it ready for tax time. But I tell clients and business owners all the time, like, your bookkeeping is your way of knowing your business from the inside out. And it's a way
Mhm.
for you to have powerful data that you can make really confident decisions on, where you're not guessing like, oh, I think I profited this amount, or some people don't even know what they profited, or they don't know what they're spending and they're
Yeah.
wondering why they're leaking money, or why are they're not profiting what they thought they were. Or even like the also the X like the one that I also see a lot is people will put goals for their business and they're like, this is my goal for this year, but it's not realistic and it's not sustainable. And so why? Because it's based off of a guesstimate as opposed to data that is up to date and is accurate. So I feel like your bookkeeping has so much more to do than tax compliance. It has a lot more to do with how you want to run your business and where you want to take your business at the end of the day. Because that's why I love working with, women in general, because I'm like, we all, I mean, the men too, right? But I feel like women have so much more like on their minds about
Yeah.
how they want to live their life a little bit more. And so I always tell everyone, like, everyone has a different priority. Everyone has a different, and that's kind of where my name came about of Balanced Roots. Everyone has different roots. We all have things that are different motivators for us.
Mhm.
And those are the things that kind of push us to start a business, to build a business, to dream about a business and a life that we want. And because it's so different for everyone, maybe someone that's single is thinking about, like, I want to travel. And someone that's a mom is like, I want to be able to drop off my kids and take them places and do
Yeah.
extracurriculars with them. Right. And so it's because it's so different. I'm like, do you realize that bookkeeping is actually the only place in your business that will give you straight answers, clear answers,
Yeah.
not telling you like, oh, maybe you should try this, maybe you should try that. But it'll tell you right off the bat, like, for example, if you're thinking about what service or product that you sell that makes you the most amount of money, your bookkeeping should be able to tell you that depending on how you structure it, right? And so if you're seeing like, oh, this service is making me the most amount of money, let me pour into more
Yeah.
that. Let me invest more into that. And not worry so much about the other one that's actually making me lose money. It's not really helping me out. So giving you such clear answers allows you essentially a map to get to the outcome that you want, the thing that you find as a priority and a route for your business that you can then find some balance to over the years and have it be successful. So I think that the idea that it's just for tax compliance,
Mhm.
just so you don't get in trouble and so you don't get audited, yes, that is a factor. But the reality is,
Wow.
what business owner doesn't want to know their business in such a way that allows them to look at their data and feel empowered by it and not stressed out, anxious, or like confused?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's so, so true. It's definitely like the way you just worded it is also like lighting me up. But it's like, oh my gosh, I should really go check and see, what is doing the best. I love that
Yeah.
thought. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that. So, what if someone is listening that is making $1,000 a month in their side hustle? What's the
Mhm.
first financial move they should make today?
So depending on what type of goal or what the motivator is for the business, right? I would ask the question, what is the first thing that you want to do or accomplish with what you're making, whatever you're profiting? Because for some people, it'll be like, I want to start paying myself because I want to leave my 9 to 5,
Yeah.
which I hear a lot, right? And so I'm like, all right, then what we're going to focus on is out of that thousand, how much do you feel comfortable with setting aside in a little fund where you can begin to kind of grow it and eventually be paying yourself money off of that? So, for example, just to kind of give a little more visual to that, because some people and I myself, I learn a little bit better like that. Uh, if I have 1,000 and I'm like, you know what, I think out of the thousand, I feel really comfortable taking about 15% of that and paying myself. It could be such a small amount, but that's you starting that habit,
Mhm.
um, and starting that also structure in financially, that 10 to 15% is not to be touched for anything but to pay you. And then as you continue to grow and make more, that 10 to 15 will grow. And you might even be like, you know what, I'm feeling a little more comfortable with doing like 20 to 30% now towards my pay.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that definitely can be one priority for some business owners. And for others, I think that again, depending on whatever your goal is, whatever you want to accomplish first in your business,
Mhm.
talk about it with your bookkeeper, talk about it with your tax preparer, because they might give you a different perspective of how to get there
Mhm.
and get there in a sustainable way, which I repeat that so much because I feel like everyone always gets that misconception too of like, oh, I'm making more money, so now I can spend more money. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Yes, you can, but you still want to be diligent with your money. Me being like, that type A bookkeeper, accountant, like your boring stereotypical one. I'm like, but wait, we gotta be safe. So, just having like that different perspective of like someone that can help you see it from a different angle so that you still get to that point that you want to get to, but you're getting there in a way that's not going to break you, that's not going to stress you out, and it's not at the end of the day going to discourage you. Because as business owners, we do so much of like constant movement to get
Yeah.
to somewhere, and it can become so exhausting so
It can.
quickly that it's usually sometimes one thing goes bad and like it's so easy to spiral, and
Yeah.
that doesn't really change over time because I feel like I've been blessed enough to be able to be making so much money that I'm like, I don't even think about how much I'm spending. But then I'm also now in a season where I'm like, you know what, well, now we got to think about things a little bit more now with kids
Mhm.
and like with a different business. It's I want to be more just a better
Mindful.
steward of what I have. And so having that conversation with someone outside of your head is
Mhm.
sometimes the key to be able to really accomplish what you want to, whatever that looks like. And especially if it's like finances, with someone that is their area of genius, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
bookkeeping, accounting.
For sure. For sure. I love that. I love that. No, it's so true. Okay, my favorite question. What does being a money hungry mama mean to you?
Oh my gosh. So I feel like the first time that I heard this, first of all, the name, loved the name. And I was like, you know what?
Ew.
It's such a thing where you're like, anybody can take it a wrong way if they want to.
Mhm.
But the reality is that nobody has the drive like a mama does. Like, I feel like the minute that I became a mother and my whole perspective on life changed, my way of approaching life changed. And it was really because I had that extra motivator of like, I'm not just doing this for me, I'm doing this for them. And they are my world. And I will do absolutely anything and everything. Like Mama Bear comes out.
Mhm.
And so when I first found you online and I heard the name, and I was like, I love that because it's not like we're being greedy. We're simply just, we want a seat at the table that we so rightfully deserve because we put in work like nobody does. And
Yeah.
we do it sleep deprived, we do it half functioning, sometimes sick. Like we do it in ways that sometimes, dads can't even do, but we get it done.
Mhm.
And for me, that's what it like spoke to because I was like, it's not about making more money. Because for me, like building a business was really about having a life, building a life and a business that I can be able to be at home with my kids, especially now that they're little, because one day they're not going to be little, which I
Exactly.
think is a thing that all moms think about. You're like, one day they're going to grow up and they're not going to be around. And I want to really treasure the moments that I can now. And so when I first like heard that, like for me, it was like, yes, like this is the time
Yeah.
that's very contradictory if you think about it, because this is the time where you feel like you have the least amount to give,
Mm.
but it's the time where I want to give the most because I'm like, this is the time where I'm most motivated by my life around me and everything that you really speak to in that, whether it's through podcasts and now the book that's coming and all the stuff that you have that you share with other moms, like I feel like it's such an encouraging thing to realize that one, you're not alone, and two, you are so capable of doing whatever it is that you want to do. And the beautiful thing is that it's like a community thing. Like we all get it and we are all ready to like support each other through it because we want to see each other's success because we get what that success means to each of us completely separately from the fact that yes, we all have our own priorities of what we want, but also like just as moms, we want to be able to build that life that we
Yeah.
want and have our kids see us build it and be like, yeah, like that's my mom.
I know, I love it so much. I love that explanation. That just gave me such chills. Like I actually have chills. And thank you for all your kind words. Like honestly, like, sometimes even me who's like doing all this stuff, like sometimes it could feel like I'm just talking and not really sure it's like resonating with anybody. And that was just like such a
Hmm.
beautiful like confirmation that it is. And I just really appreciate you. So thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, of course.
Liz, where can we support you?
All right. So you can definitely find me on socials. I am very heavily involved in Instagram. You want to know about what's going on with my life? It's in there at Balance Roots of Bookkeeping. I literally had the flu last week with my whole family was down. And I told everybody, I'm like, listen, we're going to put the business on pause because I'm slowly dying over here, but we're going to get out of it. But that's where you can really learn about everything that Balance Roots Bookkeeping has to offer for your business. We offer cleanups, which right now is the time in the season before
Yeah.
tax season, which cleanups, in case you're wondering, like, what is that? It's just bringing your bookkeeping up to date, whether it's 3 months or 3 years. We do monthly bookkeeping done for you. So that's something that if you are interested in. And then we also do advisory if you're starting out and you want something a little bit more laid back, not too much commitment. That's the place you want to go to, and just the place where you want to start. We have our website, balancerootsbookkeeping.com, where it'll give you a nice rundown of everything about me, what we have to offer, what it looks like, the pricing, like the process. And right now we're offering free bookkeeping consultations with me. It's personalized. 30 minutes completely dedicated to you and your business, what's important to you right now. And there's no pressure to work together. It's just for you to walk away with some information that is going to
Love it.
better your business. And we have a TikTok, same thing at Balancers Bookkeeping, Facebook. And yeah, and then if you just want to chat or you just want to ask me a random question, like just hit, the DM and let me know because I am always happy to talk. I'm always around. It may not be if you're a mom, you get it. Like you will send a message and maybe like hours later it'll come
Yeah.
to you. But it's coming. I promise it's coming.
Story of my life. Story of my
Yeah.
life. No, it's so true. You're gonna regret that. I'm gonna be like, "Hey, Liz, I have a question." No, I love it. Thank you so much for being here today.
It was my pleasure. And thank you so much for having me.